Up at 1 a.m. You drove 3 hours on the highway. Way too fast. The acrid smell of petrol burns your nose as you crush the accelerator into the ground. You drive the rough road to the trailhead. Your Jeep rocks back and forth smoothly. You pray to not bottom out and crack your oil pan again. By 4:15, you're addressed. Your axes are holstered on your back. You wear only a t-shirt so you can feel the cold, clear night air on your skin. Be bold, start cold, so they say. Starting your watch, you take off on a brisk jog up the beginning hill. 20 hours later, you return to your car, beaten and bloodied, in no state to drive. You sit on the hood and stare up at the mountain you just descended. Up there was beauty, love, camaraderie, danger, and death. Down here, what was there for you? Boredom? Some school project? How does that compare to the pain and the risk? The contradiction itches at your mind, but you have no word to articulate this feeling. That, my friend, is bathos. You may or may not have felt this feeling before, but once you have, you never forget it. The return from the mountains is not the only place we endure this feeling. It is the come down, from the sublime to the banal. The return from the magical world and the hero's journey. If you are an athlete or a musician, you have felt this before. You put on the performance of your life, but you must return from that ethereal realm where you were king back to the banal, boring life where Jenny from accounting is harassing you about that expense report that you know you need to do, but keep putting off because it's terrible. As I've alluded to, this is part of the hero's journey. Modeled by the great mythologist Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey talks about the cycle, the pattern of heroes across myths and cultures and time. But the hero's journey isn't always heroic. Sometimes it's tragic, a la Oedipus or Agamemnon. Allow me to tell you a story to illustrate the meaning of bathos, as I'm sure you've felt this feeling before and you know exactly what I'm talking about. But for those of you that potentially haven't, or need a bit more clarification, I don't believe that simply defining the word, as I've kind of already done, conveys it in full. So I will tell you the story, which is true to some extent or another. I've certainly met people like this, and maybe I myself have been like this at times. You hear the call to go to the mountains. You're already somewhat of an accomplished mountaineer, but you haven't been in a while and you want to go again. You argue with yourself. You're like, But eventually, whether it be a day later or a week later, you heed it. You consult a friend or watch a YouTube video on the route that you're going to do or the gear you need to bring for advice. Then you drive to the base. You meet someone at the trailhead and discuss the route. They tell you that the big flake 3/4 up the route is bad, and then they lend you a piton to help you with the specific pitch. You carry your gear to the climb, enduring the long approach through a vast boulder field. You reach the base and embark on the longest, most arduous technical climb of your life, where it turns out that piton ends up saving your life. Reaching the top, you stare over the horizon into Kansas. You see all this flat land before you. Alexander saw the breadth of his kingdom and wept, as they say. You descend the mountain and you feel dead. You reach a landmark and realize you're a mile from the car. You take a caffeine pill and make it back to the car in record time from that tree. You somehow manage to punch out a 10-minute mile in your boots. Once you notice the journey somewhere, you of course see the journey everywhere. But once you cross the threshold once into the magical world, that is the mountains, it can be difficult to fully return. Yes, it made you a better person, potentially. Maybe it made you stronger, maybe it made you more articulate, maybe it made you more confident, maybe it made you more astute. And so you continue on with your life, reaping the benefits of that journey. But the adventure that was the magic in Narnia slowly begins to fade away. You always know that there is some sort of facade to modern life, that is office work. Sinking the high, whether it be a week later or a day later, you go back to the mountains, you push further. Desperately, like a dying man swinging line, you consume and consume beauty and danger, pulchritude and death, until you can't really tell the difference between the two. Beauty and death become so associated that you struggle to identify the difference and associate both with a good time. You neglect everything to get your next fix. Friends, family, relationships, work. Until climbing a route is like pulling the trigger 5 times and Russian roulette sequentially. You're pushing too far, too fast. Something in you knows this, and everyone around you knows this, but you can't stop. The intoxicating beauty, the feeling of apotheosis has consumed you. You have become a shell of a man, feeding only on the mountains and beauty and death, associating both with each other. It isn't long before you're climbing a peak and you slip, this time badly, and tumble down the Nordwand. Or you ski and trigger a giant slide, or the weather moves in and you have to race. Ironically, right before you died, you regretted everything. You cried out to God for the cruel trick he played. Your friends and family aren't surprised. They mutter how the mountains are dangerous. At the funeral, no one really cries. They knew you were an addict, of course. At least you died doing something that they love, they whisper bitterly. But your memory persists. The shade of your achievements leads countless young men to their doom, ripping more families apart. If you have climbed, you know this feeling of too much but never enough very well. The mountains can be the best thing ever, but it is worse because they make everything boring or banal, or however you want to phrase it, by comparison. So, I caution all mountaineers, be aware of bathos. Don't let it turn you into this hollow man.